Everything in life begins with a thought. Every achievement, every breakthrough, every habit, every relationship, and every decision is first created in the invisible world of the mind before it ever appears in reality. Nothing changes on the outside until something changes within. This is why the greatest advantage anyone can develop is not greater talent, more resources, or better circumstances. It is the ability to discipline the way they think. Most people spend years trying to improve their lives while allowing their minds to wander without direction. They carefully organize their schedules, set ambitious goals, and search endlessly for motivation. Yet they rarely stop to examine the thoughts that silently guide every action they take. They attempt to control their behavior while leaving the source of that behavior completely untrained. That approach can only produce temporary results because every action is born from a thought, and every repeated thought eventually becomes a habit. An undisciplined mind is unpredictable. It moves wherever fear points, wherever doubt whispers, and wherever distraction calls. One moment, it believes success is possible, and the next it becomes overwhelmed by uncertainty. It builds hope one day and tears it down the next. It searches for confidence, but constantly feeds insecurity. It dreams of progress while repeatedly imagining failure. Over time, this internal conflict becomes exhausting because the greatest obstacle is no longer the outside world. The obstacle becomes the endless battle taking place within. The mind is always listening. Every sentence repeated internally becomes an instruction. Every belief accepted without question begins shaping perception. Every expectation quietly influences behavior. The thoughts repeated most often slowly become the lens through which reality is interpreted. This is why two people can experience similar circumstances while producing completely different outcomes. The difference often lies not in the situation itself, but in the meaning their minds assign to it. When the mind is filled with doubt, opportunities begin to look like risks. Challenges appear impossible. Delays feel permanent. Every obstacle seems like proof that success belongs to someone else. On the other hand, a disciplined mind approaches the same circumstances differently. Instead of searching for reasons to quit, it searches for reasons to continue. Instead of expecting failure, it begins looking for solutions. Instead of surrendering to temporary emotions, it remains anchored to a larger purpose. This is not about pretending difficulties do not exist. It is about refusing to allow difficulties to control the direction of thought. Problems are a part of life, but they do not have to become permanent residents in the mind. Every person encounters uncertainty, disappointment, criticism, and setbacks. The difference is that a disciplined thinker does not build an identity around those experiences. They recognize them, learn from them, and continue moving forward without allowing them to define what is possible. The quality of life is deeply connected to the quality of attention. Wherever attention goes, mental energy follows. Whatever receives repeated attention grows stronger. Constantly focusing on fear strengthens fear. Constantly replaying mistakes strengthens regret. Constantly expecting disappointment strengthens anxiety. The mind cannot help but expand whatever it practices every single day. This is why discipline begins with awareness. Before thoughts can be directed, they must first be noticed. Every day presents thousands of opportunities to choose what deserves attention. Some thoughts deserve to stay because they inspire courage, creativity, and determination. Others deserve to leave because they contribute nothing except limitation. Yet many people treat every thought as if it deserves to be believed. They assume that because a thought appears, it must also be true. Speak. In reality, the mind generates countless ideas that do not reflect reality at all. A disciplined thinker understands that thoughts are suggestions, not commands. Imagine beginning each day with complete authority over your own mind. Instead of waking up and immediately becoming a prisoner of worry, you deliberately choose confidence. Instead of allowing yesterday's disappointments to dictate today's expectations, you decide to create a new mental direction. Instead of rehearsing everything that could go wrong, you begin strengthening the vision of everything that could go right. That single shift changes more than emotions. It changes decisions, habits, persistence, and eventually results. Discipline is often misunderstood as forcing yourself to do difficult things. True discipline begins much earlier than action. It begins with choosing what deserves space inside your mind. It means refusing to entertain destructive thinking long enough for it to become belief. It means protecting your inner conversation with the same care you would protect your greatest treasure. Every disciplined action is simply the visible expression of disciplined thinking. The strongest people are not those who never experience fear or doubt. They are the ones who refuse to let fear and doubt become permanent leaders of their lives. They acknowledge uncertainty without surrendering to it. They recognize negative thoughts without building a home for them. They understand that the mind is like a garden. Whatever is planted repeatedly will eventually grow. If weeds are allowed to spread without discipline, they eventually consume everything else. But when the garden is cared for with intention, it becomes a place where strength, confidence, resilience, and purpose flourish naturally. Everything changes the moment thinking becomes intentional instead of automatic. The mind stops reacting to every circumstance and starts leading every circumstance with clarity and purpose. That is the beginning of real transformation. Before success becomes visible, before confidence becomes obvious, and before life begins to reflect new possibilities, one quiet decision is made: the decision to discipline your thinking. From that moment forward, the mind no longer becomes a place where fear is allowed to rule. It becomes the foundation upon which an entirely different future is built. The future is not created in a single extraordinary moment. It is created quietly, day after day, through the thoughts that are repeated most often. Long before results become visible, the mind has already established the direction. Every belief accepted, every expectation held, and every internal conversation carried throughout the day is slowly constructing the reality that follows. This process is so subtle that many people overlook it completely, believing their future is determined only by circumstances, luck, or opportunity. In truth, the mind is constantly preparing the path long before the feet ever begin to walk it. Every thought carries influence. A single thought may appear insignificant, but no thought remains isolated if it is repeated. Repetition transforms ideas into beliefs, beliefs into decisions, decisions into habits, and habits into identity. Eventually, identity determines the choices made without even thinking about them. This is why the direction of life is often less about dramatic events and more about ordinary thoughts repeated every single day. Consider how easily the mind forms patterns. When one fearful thought is entertained repeatedly, it begins inviting similar thoughts to join it. Soon, worry becomes familiar. Doubt begins feeling normal. Limitation starts appearing reasonable. The mind becomes conditioned to expect disappointment because it has practiced expecting disappointment. It is no different from strengthening a muscle. Speak whatever receives consistent attention grows stronger, whether it is confidence or insecurity, hope or fear, determination or hesitation. Many people unknowingly train themselves to expect the very outcomes they wish to avoid. They replay old failures until those memories feel larger than future possibilities. They rehearse conversations that never happen, imagine obstacles that never arrive, and predict disappointments before giving success a chance to unfold. This habit slowly drains energy because the mind cannot distinguish between what is repeatedly imagined and what is repeatedly experienced. Every rehearsal leaves an emotional imprint, and over time those emotional patterns begin directing behavior. This is why discipline is not about eliminating every negative thought. That would be impossible. The human mind naturally produces thousands of thoughts every day, many of which appear automatically. The real discipline lies in deciding which thoughts deserve attention and which deserve silence. A passing doubt does not become dangerous until it is welcomed, repeated, and believed. Fear loses much of its power when it is observed without being fed. A disciplined thinker understands that attention is one of the most valuable resources available. Every moment spent nourishing limitation is a moment taken away from building possibility. Every minute devoted to resentment weakens the energy available for growth. Every hour invested in regret steals focus from the opportunities that exist today. The mind always expands whatever receives consistent focus. Therefore, directing attention wisely becomes one of the greatest forms of self-discipline. This requires questioning thoughts instead of automatically accepting them. Just because the mind suggests failure does not mean failure is inevitable. Just because doubt appears does not mean it deserves agreement. Thoughts are not facts simply because they enter awareness. Many are nothing more than echoes of past experiences, old fears, or beliefs that have never been challenged. A disciplined mind learns to pause before accepting these messages as truth, instead of asking, and quote, "Why does nothing ever work for me?" And quote, a disciplined mind begins asking, and quote, "What opportunity am I not seeing yet?" And quote, instead of repeating, and quote, "Iandapos," not capable, and quote. It begins replacing that thought with, and quote, "Every challenge is making me stronger." And quote. Instead of focusing on how far there is still to go, it begins appreciating every step already taken. These changes may seem small, but small shifts repeated consistently become powerful transformations over time. The remarkable quality of the mind is that it adapts to whatever it practices. Confidence is not reserved for a fortunate few. It is developed through repeated courageous thinking. Patience is not simply inherited. It is strengthened through repeatedly choosing calm over panic. Resilience is not created overnight. It grows every time the mind decides to stand back up instead of remaining focused on defeat. This is why mental discipline eventually begins to feel effortless. What once required conscious effort slowly becomes natural. Positive thinking is no longer forced because the mind has been trained to seek possibility instead of limitation. Gratitude becomes automatic because attention has learned to recognize abundance instead of absence. Persistence becomes normal because the mind has stopped expecting immediate failure. The thoughts repeated every day gradually shape an entirely new way of seeing the world. The future is always responding to tadayandapos, patterns of thinking. It reflects what has been practiced consistently, not what has been wished for occasionally. A single moment of inspiration cannot overcome months of undisciplined thinking, but daily mental discipline has the power to reshape even the strongest limiting beliefs. Every intentional thought becomes another brick laid in the foundation of tomorrow. Speak. This means that every day offers a fresh opportunity to strengthen the mind rather than weaken it. Every challenge becomes an invitation to practice better thinking. Every setback becomes an opportunity to build greater resilience. Every obstacle becomes a chance to replace fear with wisdom and reaction with purpose. The future is never built by accident. It is built one disciplined thought at a time, one intentional belief at a time, and one conscious decision after another. When thinking changes consistently, the future has no choice but to begin changing with it. Everyone wants a better life. They want greater success, stronger relationships, better health, financial freedom, inner peace, and lasting fulfillment. These are worthwhile goals, but there is one truth that is often overlooked. Life cannot be mastered until the mind is mastered. Every external result is influenced by an internal pattern of thinking. The way a person responds to pressure, uncertainty, failure, opportunity, and success is determined long before those moments arrive. It is determined by the condition of the mind. Many people spend years trying to control everything around them. They try to control outcomes, other people's opinions, changing circumstances, and events they cannot possibly predict. This constant struggle creates frustration because so much of life exists beyond personal control. Seasons change, unexpected challenges appear, opportunities come and go, and people make decisions that cannot be influenced. The more energy invested in controlling the uncontrollable, the less energy remains for the one thing that can always be strengthened: the quality of thought. A disciplined mind understands this difference. It stops wasting energy fighting reality and begins directing that energy inward. Instead of asking, "How can I control everything that happens?" it begins asking, "How can I control the way I think about what happens?" That single shift changes everything. Circumstances may remain difficult, but the mind no longer becomes their prisoner. Challenges still exist, but they no longer have permission to steal peace or destroy purpose. Every challenge presents two battles. The first is the external situation. The second is the internal conversation that follows. Often, the internal battle is far more important because it determines every action taken afterward. One person faces rejection and concludes that success is impossible. Another faces the same rejection and sees it as preparation for something greater. One obstacle produces two completely different futures because the minds interpreting the experience are completely different. This is why emotional strength is not about never feeling disappointment or fear. Every human being experiences difficult emotions. The difference lies in what happens next. An undisciplined mind allows temporary emotions to become permanent decisions. It reacts immediately, speaks without thinking, quits too early, or allows frustration to shape its identity. A disciplined mind acknowledges emotion without surrendering to it. It creates space between feeling and action. Within that space, wisdom has the opportunity to lead. There will always be moments when doubt appears. There will always be days when progress feels invisible and motivation feels distant. During those moments, discipline becomes far more valuable than emotion. Motivation rises and falls with circumstances, but discipline remains steady because it is built upon commitment rather than feeling. A disciplined thinker understands that today's emotions do not have the authority to define tomorrow's future. One of the greatest signs of mental maturity is the ability to remain calm when everything around you feels uncertain. Calmness is not weakness. It is strength under control. While others panic, the disciplined mind observes. While others complain, it searches for solutions. While others become overwhelmed by temporary setbacks, it quietly asks, "What is the next right step?" Progress is rarely made by those who react impulsively. It is made by those who think clearly when clarity is needed most. The mind also becomes stronger every time it refuses to revisit unnecessary negativity. Holding on to resentment, replaying old mistakes, or constantly reliving painful memories keeps attention trapped in places where growth cannot occur. The past can teach valuable lessons, but it should never become a permanent residence. A disciplined thinker learns from yesterday without allowing yesterday to control today. Every new morning becomes an opportunity to think differently, act differently, and move forward with greater wisdom. Another important part of mastering the mind is protecting it from constant distraction. Modern life competes endlessly for attention. Every notification, every opinion, every headline, and every unnecessary comparison has the potential to pull focus away from what truly matters. Without discipline, the mind becomes scattered. It begins chasing every new idea while completing none. It reacts instead of creating. It consumes instead of growing. Mental discipline means deciding what deserves attention. It means protecting focus with intention. It means recognizing that attention is limited and should be invested where it produces growth instead of anxiety. The strongest minds are not those that think about everything. They are those that know what to ignore. This discipline gradually changes identity. Confidence no longer depends on constant praise because self-belief has become internal. Peace no longer depends on perfect circumstances because stability has been built from within. Persistence no longer depends on immediate success because purpose has become stronger than temporary discomfort. The mind becomes steady. And when the mind is steady, decisions become wiser, actions become more consistent, and progress becomes inevitable. True mastery is never about controlling the world. It is about refusing to let the world control your thinking. It is about standing firm when uncertainty tries to create fear, remaining focused when distraction demands attention, and choosing wisdom when emotion invites reaction. Every day offers another opportunity to strengthen this inner discipline. Every thought chosen with intention becomes another step toward a stronger character, a clearer vision, and a life directed by purpose instead of circumstance. The greatest victories are not always the ones the world can see. Often, they happen quietly within the mind. They happen the moment fear is replaced with courage, doubt is replaced with conviction, and distraction is replaced with focus. That is where lasting transformation begins. Master your mind first, and your life will gradually follow in the same direction.